Wednesday, April 17th here on the Just Baseball Show. You got Aram Leighton over there, and I am Peter Apple. And today, Aram, get ready to harmonize. 3, 2, 1.
Mailbag.
Mailbag. You're getting better. I'm
Getting
proud of
better.
you. And when you hear the harmony, you know it's time for the bi-weekly mailbag. We got all of your questions from our Twitter at justbb_media and on our Instagram at justbaseballshow. I also want to shout out our Instagram followers. Most questions we have ever gotten
Wow.
on Instagram. So this mailbag is heavy on Instagram. We're not trying to diss the Twitter people. There were plenty of
No.
good questions, but there was so many on Instagram. I felt that I just had to include them. We have Rookie of the Year updates. We got, what else we got? We got most underrated player. We have stuff about Jack Leiter. We have superhero fictional characters. We have underrated teams. Who could be the next Diamondbacks? Rule changes. We have so many on this episode, but we got a couple of quick topics to go over first, but it's all brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sports books. Code Just Baseball. We talk about it all the time. Why would you not go load up your account? Because you can get a first bet offer up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if you download BetMGM for new users. All you got to do, once you deposit, use code Just Baseball, and you will get those all paid back. Remember to gamble responsibly, must be 21 or older, and terms and conditions apply. First topic of the day, Aram, Andy Pages, who's pretty damn high on our top 100 MLB prospects on justbaseball.com, just got the call up for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Chris Taylor has not been ideal so far. I think I saw a stat. He's 1 for his last 33. So I'm assuming that he's going to get plenty of ABs there. What should Dodger fans expect from Andy Pages?
Yeah, number 50 overall prospect for us. And that was, before the season started. And since the season started in AAA, he's slashed 371, 452, 694. So it's an 1146 OPS. What stands out to me is Pages he's a guy that we've had on the top 100 list for several years now, was in the midst of, I think, really having that year last year where I think he would have got up and made his debut at 22 years old, was dominating in AA, gets promoted to AAA, and then tears his shoulder on a swing. Cuts his season, ends his season right there. And so to come back from that and look as good as he's looked in spring training, remember Walker specifically talked about how he was one of the youngsters at spring training that stood out to him, and then continue to do what he's doing in AAA is really impressive. The contact rates are up, the exit velocity is up. He's not chasing, he's not striking out. Like, it's everything you want to see. And he demolishes lefties. He's at an OPS around 1,000 against lefties in the minor leagues. So at the very least, he's going to thrive in that role for the Dodgers. But as you mentioned, Pete, like Chris Taylor, we talked about it last episode. It's been really tough to see. And they're obviously going to keep him around because he's a good clubhouse guy and they owe him $26 million over the next 2 years. But Pages, I think, gives them a lot more potentially offensively in the corner outfield spots. And he plays a good corner outfield too.
So I'm a little bit confused. Not that they're bringing up Andy Pages, but the Dodgers, they've had Michael Busch and they let him go. They kept Andy Pages, and of course they still have Miguel Vargas. And I feel like all of them are kind of all in the same boat. If they get an opportunity to play every day, they're going to be good big leaguers. Michael Busch comes up with the Dodgers, only plays 27 games and really doesn't find anything. Now he's probably the National League Rookie of the Year frontrunner after hitting 5 home runs in 5 straight games once he got a full opportunity. So my question to you is, do you actually see the Dodgers giving Andy Pages real opportunity to run? Because you could see they gave it to James Outman and it produced one of the better rookie seasons from a Dodger in a while, right? But Miguel Vargas didn't get the run. So do you think genuinely the Dodgers are going to give Pages the run that he needs to kind of get going? Because I feel like if they put him in specific spots, it's hard for a young player like that to really show off his full potential.
I think you bring up a great point. And I think I'm hoping that they've kind of learned from those last couple instances and, kind of adjust accordingly. I do think that there's a lot of at-bats for him when you kind of look around and Kike Hernandez is a guy that has not performed well. You can definitely eat into those ABs. I think there's ways where they can kind of move things around and get him in there 3-4 days a week. But I would have hoped and imagined that they do not make the same mistake that they made before, and not, give these guys consistent run if you're going to bring them up, especially when Pages is trending so well and is, has so much momentum going for him. I'd imagine between Enrique Hernandez, Kike Hernandez, and then of course, Taylor as well. I think they're going to be able to find enough ABs for Pages out there to be able to play pretty consistently.
And overall, you would say that you think he's going to hit the ground running, or do you think there's going to be a maturation process?
I think there's always going to be those ups and downs with rookies, but relative to other rookies that I've seen get brought up, Jack and I talked about like Jonathan Clase and some of these other players. I think Pages is kind of built to be able to make that transition. So I do think he makes an impact right away. The way he elevates consistently, the way he's able to draw walks, like even if he's not making as much contact as you'd like to see, which I think he will. I think there's still ways that he can be productive and he plays a good corner. I do think he makes an impact for them right away. And if he does, it's really annoying because now the Dodgers' weakness, they could just fix that by bringing up a guy. And that's the one thing with the Dodgers, right? I think you talked about it a couple episodes ago, was like the top of the order is so good, but then it falls off right now. It's been tough to watch on the back half. But if you can bring up guys like this, that could be a spark plug. That's what makes the Dodgers the Dodgers.
And that's definitely what they could use, because I was telling Jack, I mean, am I the bad guy to be underwhelmed by the Dodgers start so far? They're 11-8. They just lost as a minus 350 favorite against the Washington Nationals. Like, I guess I'm the bad guy. I'm the hater, and I'm fine to do it because the Dodgers need a couple haters. They spend $1 trillion, and then they're expected to win every game. And all my friends back home are Dodger fans, and they're completely underwhelmed. I give them shit every day, and they deserve it. The Dodgers have been underwhelming, and they need a guy like Andy Pages.
They did well, and I think it says a lot, right? They're calling him up after 13 games off a torn shoulder. Like, I know he had a great spring and he's been off to a good start, but again, I think it shows a little bit of the urgency. And like the Dodgers aren't worried about anything, but it's like,
They
okay,
should be. They should be. They're an average team.
I think they're worried about the back end of that lineup, though. I think they could seriously look in the mirror and say, okay, do we really think Chris Taylor is going to turn around? Do we really think Kike Hernandez is going to turn it around? You hope so, but I don't think you could confidently say yes. I think when you look at that situation and you see what you got in AAA, why not get Pages up there now? If there is that maturation process, by the time you get to the postseason, he'll be full-fledged, ready to go. We talked about it last episode. We thought maybe Vargas would be the first guy that gets a look because of his versatility, but I think they just see the value of Pages' bat. And I think to kind of tie a bow on your question, if it was sporadic playing time, I think they'd bring up Vargas because he's not a guy that I think they're looking at as much of a long-term piece. But I think bringing up Pages to me says, hey, we're going to try to play him, a lot of the time here. And he's going to get plenty of run.
That makes all the sense in the world. So we're wishing Andy Pages the best of luck. And if you want to read more about Andy Pages, you can find the top 100 located on justbaseball.com, written by our fearless leader, Arm Layton. All right, let's move to our second topic of the day. And this just came across the desk right before we hit the record button. Ozzie Albies hit the 15-day IL with a fractured toe, and it really stinks, right? I mean, the Braves offense, I almost said, should we talk about Ozzie Albies getting injured? Of course it matters because he's a great player, but the Braves have the #1 WRC plus in all of baseball at 140. So going down an offensive piece, I'm sure they'll be fine, but it is a big piece. Right now, Ozzie Albies is slashing 317, 386, 878 with 2 bombs, 2 steals. He's been incredibly important for this Braves lineup. And then when you consider their alternative is Luis Guillorme, did you know Luis Guillorme isn't even 30 yet? Did you know that? I thought
the only reason I know that is he's a South Florida kid, and we played against him in high school. I was not on the varsity team yet, but he's several years older. But the rap on him was like, you're never gonna get this guy to strike out. And I just always remember that. And I'd watch him hit, and he was like Luis Arias in high school. I don't think he had any home runs, and he hit like 600 in Florida. So the only reason why I knew he was younger than 30, if you ask me otherwise, I would assume he's 33. But you know what? That's not the worst plug-in option, I feel like.
Because he's going to provide incredible defense.
Yeah.
And he's not going to hit much, but at the same time, when you're the Braves and you have this type of thump in your lineup, I think you're going to be okay for the time being. I'm just curious, right? A fractured toe. That's all we know right now. We don't know the timetable, but a toe ain't pretty. I don't know when he's going to come back. So should we guess a month? I don't know.
I don't know. And the thing too, he's a big leg kick guy, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't, and I'm imagining like picking that leg up and putting it down, like just not really feeling good with that. When you're trying to get back into hitting, it might take a little bit of time for him. But you bring up a great point with Guillorme. I'm looking at this lineup, especially with Kelnick hitting right now. Guillorme's your 9 hitter, and as long as he's not a gaping hole of just misery, which he won't be. If he's at 85 WRC plus with good defense and grinding out, he sees a lot of pitches, he grinds out ABs. They're going to be just fine. But I wanted to talk about the injury more so just because I don't think I realized how insane Albies was like doing until I saw that he got hurt. And then we went to the stats. I'm like, whoa, I knew he was swinging it well. I didn't know he was swinging it that well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how good of a team you are, that hurts. But then you just look at the rest of the lineup and it's absurd. But geez, what a start for Albies too. That's what sucks. It feels like he's had a lot. He's been lucky through the last couple of stretches, but every once in a while he just has some bad injury luck. I feel like when he's on nice stretches, which stinks. But I don't think the Braves will lose sleep for now. But I'd imagine, yeah, it might be three weeks a month. Like that stinks.
And it feels like it's compounding with Atlanta right now. You see Spencer Strider go down, and then you see Ozzie
Mm-hmm.
Albies go down. I mean, remember, we're recording on Tuesday, April 16th, and those are two of their best players. But luckily, the Braves have built up such a treasure chest of players that
Yeah,
putting in Luis Guillorme for a month, I'm not going to downgrade them by any means.
I
All right.
forgot to. I forgot they have David Fletcher too.
He could be something.
He's a person.
He's a baseball player.
Yeah.
100% a baseball player. All right, let's get into the mailbag. But first, how about a quick message from our friends at Outlier? Outlier is a sports betting decision assistant for aspiring intermediate and advanced sports bettors who understand that data is the foundation of a profitable sports betting strategy. Outlier pairs hyper-contextual and relevant sports data with available betting markets, and I use it every single day because, unlike traditional sports data sites like ESPN, Baseball Reference, whatever, Outlier organizes and visualizes data for easy comprehension, efficient decision making, and immediate execution. It just makes your life easier. Make sure to check out their first of its kind strike zone heat maps and pitch arsenal roundups that allow you to quickly visualize pitcher and batter matchups all in one screen. It's available on iOS, desktop, and mobile browsers. Get your 7-day trial at outlier.bet/justbaseball, which you can find in our episode description. If this is the first episode you've been listening to in a while, you may not know about Outlier. I use Outlier every day. I know Arm uses it. I know Jack uses it. Our whole company uses it because of how easy it is to wrap all the data, consolidate it, and make better decisions quicker and easier. Make sure to go check it out. The 7-day free trial in our link tree. All right, Arm.
Yeah. Last
Oh,
thing
go
I'll say
ahead.
on that too,
Go
just
ahead.
to add real quick, I use it for like fantasy and stuff. Like
Mhm.
it's fun for me just to get an edge like daily fantasy when I'm setting my lineups. Like it's not even something that you have to use like solely for betting. It's just a great tool to kind of know how matchups are for certain teams, certain players, and it's just a really ridiculous tool. It makes me realize how far technology has come.
I'm glad you said that because I've gotten a lot of DMs being like, "Hey, I don't really bet, but I've been using this for fantasy and it's been awesome."
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to definitely take advantage of. So go check out the 7-day free trial. Again, try it out. If you don't like it, just cancel. I doubt you will because you're going to love it. You can find it in the episode description. All right, question number 1 of the mailbag. This was going to be a topic, but we got plenty
Yeah.
of questions surrounding Jack Leiter, so might as well put it as a mailbag question. So number 1, Jack Leiter makes his MLB debut on Thursday. What can/should we expect from his debut and major league output for the rest of the year? Asked by
Mm-hmm.
Ben_Spittler17 on Instagram. Arm Leighton, the floor is yours.
Yeah, this is great timing. We've talked about Jack in spring training. We talked about, how he's been doing great. Obviously, giving the disclaimer that, I have a little bit of bias there as someone I've grown up with, but just seeing what he was doing in spring training and being able to look at the data there and see that there was a tangible adjustment, that was really exciting. And I didn't want to push it too hard because I didn't want to, show my bias too much, but I was like, this is different. And then you see the start of the year in AAA, and it is totally different. He looks like Vanderbilt Jack Leiter. The first outing, 5 and remember, he's in the PCL. We always talk about the PCL, how it is impossible to keep runs off the board out there. And really, the only runs he's given up are via the home run, and it's PCL home runs. But he has been phenomenal with the fastball, and he is just the command has been on a different level. So the fastball, just the shape has kind of come back. He's finally kind of getting that ride that he was getting at Vanderbilt and getting ridiculous swing and miss at the top of the zone. And then working off of that, his slider is playing the way that it used to play before, too. He adjusted his release just slightly, a little bit lower, and it's allowing him to get a little bit more sweep and I think control it a bit better. And then I actually asked him coincidentally yesterday. I was like, is this cutter like new for you, or is it something that you're throwing a little bit more? And he was like, yeah, I've actually used to mix it in here and there, but I didn't realize like how good of a weapon it could be. And now he's using that cutter pretty frequently, and around 10% of the time, and it just gives him another look. I talked to a hitter that faced him recently, and he said that cutter really creates a whole different dynamic because you're so worried about 97 with ride. Now you have another fastball in the low 90s that looks like it's the same pitch and then darts towards you at the last minute. And he still has that banger curveball that's been a little inconsistent for him. So having that cutter mixed in there takes some pressure off of that curveball. I think what you can expect is an elite fastball. And we're seeing what prospects with elite fastballs are able to do. Look at Jerry Jones and stuff like that. Like, this is a really good fastball, improved secondaries and improved command. Just to put it in perspective, the last thing I'll say on him, 6 innings his last time out against the Dodgers AAA affiliate. He struck out 10 and walked 0. The last time he did that, he was a junior in high school. So even in the dominance at Vanderbilt, those 13, 14, 15K outings, he would walk maybe 1, sometimes 2 in those outings. Shows you where the command is at this point. And, through 3 starts so far, 25 punchies, just 3 walks. Seems like Jack Leiter's starting to really put it together. And I think he's hitting, the big leagues with a lot of momentum. And I think he's ready for it. I think we're going to see him be successful. There might be some inconsistencies, some blips here and there, command wise, may run into the long ball here and there. But I think you're going to see a guy that racks up a lot of strikeouts, is going to show you flashes of, the number 2 overall pick. And as long as he can weather those, blips in the radar, like a lot of young pitchers, which I know he's built to be able to do, I think he's going to be a really good piece for them until the reinforcements come. And then, we'll see how they use him.
First of all, Rangers fans just got blown back in their seats listening to that. I mean, find a better breakdown on the history of the planet than Aram just did with Jack Leiter. They're friends. He just broke down everything. He's like, well, I talked to this hitter who knows him. I talked to him. I talked to this. I know this. Unbelievable. Number two, so we know he's going to be a good pitcher, or at least we think he is, based on all the data and all the research that you've done. And moving forward, you're probably high on him even this season. But his debut is on Thursday. He's facing the Tigers. It's Rangers, Tigers. He's facing off against Kenta Maeda. First start, what do you think against that Tigers offense? And then moving forward, do you think that he could be in the running to stick in this rotation when the big guns come back? Is he that good? Or do you think that we're going to see what he looks like? Probably some 5-inning starts. There might be a little bit of struggles here, but he's going to keep the Rangers in the ball games until the horses come back. Where are you at in that sense of right now, Rangers fans expecting for this season?
So the Tigers have been a frustrating watch for me over the last few games. I think he's going to take care of business against them. I think he's going to pound the zone. I think he's going to overpower.
John Gray just did. So
yeah,
hey, shout out the Tigers. They won that game because they got to that Tigers bullpen. Shout out the Tigers.
They're battling, but their offense has been frustrating for me at points. And I don't know what the numbers are the course of the season, but it seems like every game I tap into, it's been tough to watch. If Leiter's filling up the zone with the fastball, with the ride that he's getting right now, I think he's going to overpower a lot of these hitters, especially a couple of the guys that are slumping. And I'm imagining Javi Baez, like Leiter's landing the slider for a strike right now at a 72% clip.
So Javier Baez already struck out.
Yeah. So Javier, he already struck out twice.
Already struck out.
Yeah. I think really he's going to succeed in this first start. I think the adrenaline's going to play. I think he's going to be throwing 97, 98. And he touched 98 several times in his last outing, by the way. I think what's going to be interesting is the subsequent 4, 5, 6 starts when big league hitters say, okay, we know that the fastball is his best pitch, and put the pressure on him to locate that slider and locate the cutter and locate the curveball. How does he do? I've seen him kind of survive and fight, but that's where the pitch count can get up a little bit. That's where you talked about kind of those 5 and dive outings. But the thing is he's going to get out there and I think give them a chance to win most times. Even those outings where it's not all there, 5 innings, 3 runs, a few too many walks, he gives you a good shot. I think he's going to give them a good shot most of the times he's out there. I'll share that last question with you and like kind of put our heads together here, Pete, because like let's look at the rotation as is right now, and then who we know are kind of coming back, off of the IL. We know that they're going to get DeGrom at some point, but like I doubt that they're really counting on any specific date there for a lot of reasons with Jacob DeGrom. I think Mahle you could probably count on coming back a little bit earlier, but right now it's Eovaldi. They've got Lorenzen plugged in there, right? They got John Gray, who's looked good, Dunning, and Andrew Heaney. I think Leiter has no problem fighting off everybody not named Eovaldi and John Gray. Dunning has looked good through stretches, but I mean, it's kind of like the old guard thing that we always talk about. Like, do you think that if Leiter has a low fours, let's say, through 10, 11 starts, would they rather have John Gray's low fours? Maybe because they're paying him. But would you rather have Dane Dunning's low fours? I don't know. Like, is Lorenzen going to keep the runs off the board next time? He was 5 shutout, but he walked 5. Like, I honestly think he's going to settle in here. The only guys that I think are going to, really hold on to a spot are Eovaldi, Gray, and then maybe Dunning. I don't know. I struggle with Dunning and Heaney kind of figuring out where they settle into this equation.
I think the Rangers overall are in a really good spot here. So if we give you an answer, Rangers fans, that you don't want to hear, just pick somebody else, because I think the Rangers will have a solid 5 when it comes to October, where we expect them to be there. I think they're just going to roll with the hot hand.
Yeah,
and
I agree
when
with
we
that.
brought up Cody Bradford as a guy who was dominating, but then he goes on the IL with a back thing. And it just seems like with all these different pitchers, they're going to be fielding a lot of calls at the deadline with teams asking for these guys. And I don't really think they're going to give up any of them, because worst case scenario, you move a couple of these guys to the bullpen. We've seen Dunning in the bullpen. We've seen John Gray in the bullpen. We've seen Andrew Heaney in the bullpen before. So I think that Jack Leiter, the way that he gets that final spot is he's got to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all it comes down to.
Yeah.
Because the Rangers have so many different options, and they kind of know who all their options are.
Yeah.
Because Dane Dunning, Gray, Heaney, these guys, they're 30 years old. They've been in the big leagues for 6, 7 years. They're not getting better. They're not getting worse. They just are who they are. So if Jack Leiter can dominate or at least outperform them, I think the spot will be his. That's why I was thinking about Cody Bradford, because he was doing that exact same thing before he got injured. So I really do think the ball is in Jack Leiter's court. If he can perform and continue his success early on in the minor leagues into the majors, he will then earn that spot. But the Rangers, while they bring up Wyatt Langford, he's been off to a rough start, right? They got kind of lucky with Evan Carter with how great he looked in the early goings. And then so far, he made a big error today. He hasn't looked awesome, even though the WRC plus is still 132 because Evan Carter just walks almost every single AB. So the WRC plus is always going to be high. But I think they're just going to roll with the hot hand. And the reason I brought up those two guys is just because they've been great minor leaguers doesn't necessarily mean that exactly translates into big league success. So the ball's in Jack Leiter's court, and I'm sure that's how Jack would want it.
Yeah. Everything I know about him, that guy's built for this stuff. And his dad, Al, is like, been a really, I think, good mentor and leader to just kind of show him how this whole operation goes. I mean, it wasn't a very linear trajectory for Leiter, right? I mean, let's be honest. There was points where people, which you know how it is, like people are just, the second you struggle, are going to come out and call you a bust and say, oh, is this the next, I saw videos all over with millions of views saying, oh, is this the next, big pitching bust? Is this the next Mark Appel, which is ridiculous. But that said, like a lot of times when pitchers or players struggle, like those narratives start to weigh on them and they don't handle it well. Like Jack is built to be able to handle that. You remember what they did last year? They made him throw a bullpen in front of the entire front office. So, and like the entire, like their whole coaching, like everybody at the Texas Rangers stadium before a game, just so that they could get eyes on him and kind of figure out what was going on. Like that, I would fold. I think a lot of professional athletes would fold. And that's like Chris Young's just sitting there staring at you. Like everyone, Maddox is looking at you. Like that is a crazy situation. But again, like he wanted that. Like he wanted to get better and figure out what was going on and show them what he can do. So, and we didn't even mention Max Scherzer, by the way. Like he's obviously going to grab a spot, but I think you hit the nail on the head where it's, if he's shoving, he's got a spot. But what I also think he could thrive in is that John Gray postseason role we saw last year. They may want to manage his innings anyways, depending on how much they use him. And Jack Leiter out of we saw him piggyback Michael Lorenzen already this year, and that was his coming out party, the first outing where he punched out 10. If he's in kind of that like swingman or relief role in the postseason, he could be dominant that way too if they have all of their Hall of Famers available. So I mean, just getting them up now, I think is really good for the team to help get them to that point. But I think it's also going to be good for them to see what they've got and decide when the postseason comes around. Because like you said, I think Jack Leiter kind of controls whether he's going to get that opportunity or not. And I think he's going to make a strong case. I do.
Pretty damn cool that the Rangers can win a World Series and then still see a young nucleus coming up, whether that be Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter and now Jack Leiter. Pretty damn cool.
It's crazy.
Pretty damn awesome. All right, let's move on to question number 2. This is a funny one.
Yeah.
And I actually looked into it to try and give everybody the best answer possible. Question number 2. Which non-pro athlete or superhero fictional character would post the highest F4 in Major League Baseball? This was asked by @BigLeagueAnalysis on Instagram. Our guy Peyton, I had to include it. Now, you're not a big superhero guy.
No.
I am. I love Marvel. I've seen all the Batman, the Spider-Man. I wouldn't call myself, a diehard, but I am a fan of superhero movies. So I have 2 answers. One answer is easy. The second answer is kind of perfect. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, I was like, I'm going to lean on you on this one, but I have some answers. Also, could it be a fictional character or could it be someone that was like, that is now old, but at one time was, like an actor that was in his prime could have been a good F4 guy?
I think with this question, nobody listening is going to dock you on anything. I think
like, wait a second, man. He's 64 now.
That doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody, and if they are upset, they're probably just having a bad day. It is tax.
Yeah.
I got killed by the IRS, so I understand if a fictional character debate would get you pissed. I'm already upset, so I understand those people. But for most people, I think they'll find it okay. So let me go first. So my answer, he would dominate Major League Baseball. Superman. Duh. He's the fastest on the field. He's the strongest. He's the best 5-tool being in the history of life. But the real answer, every team gives the speedster a chance. Every team. Yeah. Right? You probably remember those teams. Remember Royals fans with Gerard Dyson? Remember Billy Hamilton on about 17 other teams? You're always going to try the speedster because if it works out and they're able to get on first base, they're going to steal second and they're going to play great defense. Who's the fastest man to ever touch Earth or whatever planet this guy lives in? The Flash. The Flash is going to dominate in center field. All he has to do is make contact and he's on third or home because he is the Flash. So the Flash is going to play the best defense you have ever seen. And as long as he just puts the bat on the ball, and remember, he can slow down time, right? Because he's so fast. So the ball is only going to be coming in. It's almost going to be floating. He's going to be easily able to hit it. And then he's going to run around the bases. The dude's going to hit 150 home runs and play the best defense you've ever seen. That would be the leader in F4, the Flash.
So are you worried about him getting picked off? Like, because
how would he get picked off? You can't even see.
So Herb Washington. So for those who may not know, the A's tried this way back. I think this was in 1974. Olympic track runner. I think one of the best track runners at the time. They're like, oh, you know what? Let's try to get this guy as like a pinch runner, or base stealer for us. And he did exactly that. He has 105 major league games under his belt. 0 plate appearances and 33 runs scored, but he was 31 for 48 on stolen bases. Like
the Flash is a superhero. Remember, this is what we're dealing with. We're not just taking a track star off the whatever. What is it called? Off the clay?
I don't even know.
Off the track.
Off the track.
We're not taking a track runner off the track here. We're talking about the Flash.
Yeah.
Flash is a little different. He's
as long as
time.
As long as he learns how to like pick up a move, I think that's
But
fine.
it doesn't even matter. Even if he gets picked off, he could just stand there and then he'll be on third. It'll be from first. You understand? This is a
That's fair
fictional
enough.
character who runs faster than the speed of light.
That's fair enough. I went a total different direction and I was like, which celebrities, like in their physical prime, could have played baseball? And so one of my biggest pet peeves and the reason why like sometimes baseball movies can be hard for me to watch is like when you watch like these guys throw and it just looks like they're throw like it looks like if you or me were throwing with our left arm. Like it just looks like so uncoordinated. And I'm
Conor
like
McGregor
I get it. I get it.
when
It's a
he
movie.
just
And like
yeah,
I, I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, that's not realistic. But like if I'm watching a guy literally look like he's throwing the ball like he's never thrown it before, it drives me nuts. So Charlie Sheen, wild thing, like he's got good mechanics,
he
man. And like that guy
does.
played baseball through high school. He was good. I think a prime Sheen, if he, had some better life choices, he took care of his body a little bit better.
Or maybe
Or he could have
went
fit in with the
overboard
86 Mets.
went overboard with his life choices and then was just like cracked out the entire time. I
Yeah,
mean, that's an electric player.
just became a superhero.
Yeah,
But I was thinking prime Charlie Sheen, like he's got a chance to get some outs. I mean, that guy can get some outs.
100%. He is the wild thing. I love that one. So another superhero that I was thinking about was the Hulk. Because imagine the type of power that he would display in a baseball field. But here's my one concern. I'm not sure the Hulk can pick up spin. Do you think
I
sliders
was
would do
thinking,
him
I
in?
was like, we already kind of had that. That was Chris Carter.
Yeah, we did. It was
But
Chris
Chris
Davis.
Carter with
It was Chris
more power.
Davis.
Yeah, Chris
No,
Davis.
the A's Chris Davis, the KRIS Chris Davis, who would hit 247 every year with 40 bombs.
Would work. The Hulk could be, yeah, he would have some issues, I think, with spin.
I think he'd get pissed. He'd break a lot of bats.
Yeah.
All right. All right, we're done with that one. Question number 3. Who do you guys think is this year's 2023 Arizona Diamondbacks? The team that no one's keeping a close eye on that can quickly catch lightning in a bottle and make a run and possibly make the World Series. In parentheses, he wrote, "It's my birthday, so please pick my question." Well, happy birthday at Shane Prox on Twitter. Let's answer his question.
Yeah, hell yeah. Happy birthday.
Who's this year's Diamondbacks?
So here's my thing. I feel like there's a lot, like, I feel like all of the underrated teams, quote unquote, are like not as underrated this year.
I was
Like,
going to say the same thing.
and I don't know if it's because of what the D-backs did last year or it's because there's a little bit more parity across baseball this year where, some of those teams that were hovering around 500 made some additions. Like even look at the Reds, like that would be an answer, but they kind of were that team last year where like people started to latch on and then they added. So like, who are those underrated teams? That's what I was going to ask you. Like, is it fair to say this team is underrated? Is it fair to say this team is underrated? And kind of go through it. My answer, I guess, and I think it's underrated through the lens of no one is taking them seriously in the playoffs.
Yes.
Right? And I think that like the D-backs, they weren't underrated from a regular season standpoint. People respected that they were, a fine
but
team.
Nobody had the Diamondbacks beating the Dodgers.
No, and just nobody had them. I don't even if they weren't playing the Dodgers, I think almost anyone who they would have matched up against in like a 5, in a full series as well. Like I don't think anybody would have had them, really having a chance, to be honest, unless they're playing like the Marlins or somebody like that. So I would say the Royals, I could like start to buy into it a little bit. And the reason why is we talked in the last episode, I nerded out about MJ Melendez's swing adjustments and how I'm actually buying into what he's doing. Similar to like the Ivan Herrera situation where I think he's found something here. And it's weird cues that, some people might like be like, whoa, that's a lot, but I think it's exactly what he needed. Well, if he's swinging the bat, Vinny P's already heating up. He hit a moon tank yesterday and seems to be settling in. Bobby Witt Jr. looks like he's one of the best players in Major League Baseball at this point. So you've got that MVP candidate carrying you, and all the complementary pieces are better. My thing that made me believe in it was like, okay, in the postseason, to pull off an upset, you need 2 guys that can shove. They might be missing that third guy that's can really, really shove. But right now they got 2 guys that can shove. Reagan's, when he's on, I'll give the floor to you on that one. Like, put him up against anybody. The way Brady Singer's throwing right now looks pretty good. Waka gives you a chance game 3. I think it's far-fetched at this point, but they do have Will Smith in the bullpen, which seems to be a magic thing going on now. And I do think that this team, like they've clearly been aggressive. I think they want to show that there's different times now. And in Kansas City, the division is wide open. The Guardians are off to a good start, but I could see them adding too, right, Pete? Like I could see them go out and make some trades. They have a decent farm. And if they add, we could probably start taking this team pretty seriously.
That was 100% going to be my answer.
Oh, sorry.
My other answer, no, don't be sorry. We're great minds think alike. My answer was going to be the Guardians before Shane Bieber went down because I totally agree with what you're saying, but I also think you underrated the rotation a little bit. We got to respect Seth Lugo at this point.
Yeah.
Respect him. He's great. He's totally founded in this rotation. He spun a 3,400 RPM curveball yesterday. So if you got Reagans, if you got Lugo, and you got freaking Brady Singer, you got those three. Now the bullpen is the issue, but at the same time, we didn't think that the Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen was going to make this enormous leap. Sometimes it's those guys that you don't really know who just find something in this 3-week span. So I'm not really looking at a rotation or excuse me, a bullpen because we weren't looking at the Diamondbacks either. And then they just caught fire. I need a couple of guys who are going to really hit, and I need you to be aggressive on the base pass, and I need 3 studs in your rotation. It's exactly what the Kansas City Royals have, right? We're currently 5th in home runs. You need to be able to hit home runs to win in the postseason. That's what they can do. You need to be able to take advantage of the base pass. When those relievers come in, you got to be able to take that extra base. It's hard to manufacture runs. They can do that. They are 4th in stolen bases. And then when you got Cole Reagans going in the rotation, he can go up against anybody in Major League Baseball. That's how talented he is. So a 1-1, I don't care who else it is, Reagans can beat you. Doesn't matter. Number 2, Lugo can go up against any 2 in baseball right now. Brady Singer can go up against any 3 in baseball right now. So they have the entire playoff equation, which is different than a regular season rotation. Because I don't look at the Royals and say, wow, you guys have so much depth. You can withstand so many injuries, right? Because if Bobby Witt Jr. goes down,
it's over.
The offense is over. But we're talking about the playoffs. You need a Ketel Marte and a Corbin Carroll at the top. You need a home run hitter like Christian Walker, whoever comes in after, right? Because Christian Walker didn't have a great playoffs, but somebody like that. You need to play good defense, and you need 3 horses. They got all of that. So I think the answer to this question among quote-unquote underrated teams, even though the Royals are off to a good start, the Royals should be considered that Diamondbacks-esque team. And if they are able to make the postseason, and the roster looks like this, better not catch you sleeping. We told you here on a Tuesday, April 16th, on the Wednesday, April 17th show.
Seth Lugo has a 105. I didn't even know that.
Awesome. Like legitimately awesome.
That's crazy. That's like, and that's the point though, too, is like even Waka now, if that's your 4th best starter, like all of a sudden, not bad. The bullpen's definitely a concern, but as you mentioned, like you get hot with the bullpen. And that's all you need. Also,
they can go get some bullpen arms. Like that's the easiest thing to go get.
And they've got a lot of guys that are like, change of scenery candidates that could easily net you a good reliever, like a Daniel Lynch, or, I think there's a lot of guys kind of stuck Tyler Gentry on top of intriguing lower level prospects that could go get them someone too. So no, I think that's the answer. Like predominantly, I'm trying to think if there's another one that you could kind of float in there, but I feel like they're kind of the clear cut fits the description team here, because everywhere else I kind of look like it's hard to say that people would discount them the same way.
Go through the divisions real quick. Obviously not the Braves, obviously not the Phillies, and we don't see anybody else in the National League East between the Mets, Marlins, and Nationals. Go to the Central, right? You could say the Pirates, but I wouldn't say that they have that recipe right now, right? Mitch Keller is no Cole Reagans. Jared Jones is exciting, but his innings are going to get limited, right? He has been no Seth Lugo. And then if you look at, the Reds, they're kind of almost overrated at this point because they're everybody's underrated team, and now they aren't winning, right? The Cubs, like I wouldn't put the Cubs in underrated categories, right? The Cardinals, definitely not. And then the Brewers.
I think the Brewers might be an answer too. I don't take them nearly.
Yeah. The thing is, I've seen the Brewers just falter so many freaking times in the playoffs, while the Royals at least won in 2015, 2016. So there is some precedence there, I
There's
guess.
there's more. I think the Brewers, though, because of the way that they faltered, like could be that answer.
Could
Just
be.
because Yelich is playing at a high level, Chorio could kind of hit this stride in the second half and turn into a different player. He's been good, but like could turn into closer to what everyone's hoping Chorio can be. Like I'm looking at a lot of guys that could just get better as the year goes on. Contreras has turned into like one of the best catchers in baseball, period. Turang has really settled in. Joey Ortiz is a guy that I think could get better and better as the year goes on. Same with Frelick. So from that, when Freddie Peralta is pitching like an ace, they need pitching for sure, but the
Yeah,
bullpen's good.
they
So
don't have the three horses, right?
no,
Freddie
they do
Peralta, and
not.
then who's getting the ball game two? Is it
DL Hall? Is it Colin Ray? Is it Joe Ross? Like that's the problem right
yeah.
now. Is it Jacob Mizorowski? Like I don't know. But yeah, I think it's clearly the Royals, but I could sprinkle the Brewers into that conversation just because I think that offense could be kind of fun and the defense is damn good too.
Could just be the Diamondbacks again. I feel
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say
people are
they're
still
kind of
not
it's
really paying
kind of them
attention to
again
them.
too.
It could be the Diamondbacks again. All right, let's get to question number 4. And this was a good one because I totally agree with his premise. So, question number 4, Rookie of the Year updates in the American League and National League. I think there are some breakouts not being talked about. Asked by Carter_West11 on Instagram. I totally agree with him. Or actually, this
Yep.
might be from Twitter, but it's Carter West 11. Shout out you, Carter. Um, because I think everyone's talking about Yamamoto, Shota Ibunaga, right? Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford, Jackson Holiday just got called up, Jackson
Chorio
Chorio,
even.
right?
Yeah.
The odds aren't indicative really right now by who are truly the far and away rookie of the year candidates at this point. So just to go over the odds on BetMGM, Holden Cowser and Evan Carter both lead at plus 300 in the American League, followed closely by Wyatt Langford and Jackson Holiday at plus 400. If you're curious what those odds mean, let's say you put $100 on Colton Cowser at plus 300, that would win you 300. $100 on Wyatt Langford would net you 400. So it's plus 400, if that makes sense. Yamamoto is still the odds on leader in the National League at plus 325. Jackson Chorio plus 400. Michael Busch plus 500. Merrill at 700, Shota Imanaga at 700, and Jared Jones at plus 900. So those are all the guys that are below 10 to 1 odds. I have my easy picks right now, and it's really not that close, except kind of in the National League, but I think there's a clear front runner. You want me to just give my answers right now?
Yeah, and then I'll fill in wherever I think there's more room.
So among rookies, it is early, but Michael Busch should be the clear front runner in the National League.
I mean,
0.9 F4, which is second among all rookies, 6 home runs, including 5 in 5 straight games. That's first among all rookies. A 199 WRC plus, which is second among all rookies. He's actually playing pretty decent defense. I don't want to say good because it hasn't been good, but it also hasn't been bad either. He's been graded out around an average defender so far, but it's so early. So to really put, and the Cubs have been dealing with rainouts. It's been windy. I'm not going to put really any stock into the defense. So far, I'm more just looking at the bat. He's been by far the best bat in the National League among rookies. Of course, you still have Jackson Merrill, who has been totaling up the WAR totals, and he's been great too. But right now, Michael Busch's bat is just a clear tier above. And considering that Merrill's not playing elite defense and it's so early to judge defense at all, I'm giving it pretty clearly right now to Michael Busch.
yeah, I mean, what Busch is doing is just silly. I mean, just to do like 6 home runs already, as you mentioned, 5 games in a row, walking, all that good stuff. But as a first baseman, he's going to need to slug more than everybody else. I think Merrill. I agree. We got to see a larger sample of the defense, but the fact that like he hasn't looked like a disaster out there is pretty insane. Like, I think it's been a testament to him how quickly we forgot that he's never played center field before.
Yeah.
Like there should be moments where we're like, oh yeah, that's a guy learning. Like even Jazz Chisholm's turned into a good center fielder, right? But in the beginning, there was a couple of plays where we're like, oh yeah, he's never played there before. With Merrill, it's like I haven't even had that happen. So he has been amazing to me just because of how polished he looks. But in terms of the statistics, yeah, it's not going to be the same level as Michael Bush. Mason Wynn has been awesome. And I know that he had a lot of run last year relative to some other rookies and like almost exceeded those rookie limits. But Mason Wynn through 15 games hitting 370. He hasn't defended as well as, we know he's capable of, but he's still playing shortstop. And just to be doing that is pretty insane. I think the power will continue to come. But that's another guy that just like, I think Mason Wynn, because the Cardinals are just weirdly disappointing and, they've just, I don't know. I just feel like the Cardinals don't get a lot of like coverage at this point. I think a lot of people wouldn't realize that Mason Wynn has a 142 WRC plus while playing, shortstop every single day over there. So on the National League side, I think those are the guys that really stand out to me. I do want to give a subtle shout out to Oliver Dunn. Doesn't stack up with those guys, but Brewers prospect that they traded for. I saw him out in the Arizona Fall League, and he stood out to me. Came over from the Phillies in kind of like a under the radar deal. I think he's one of very few players in the major leagues from Utah, if I'm not mistaken. But he's been pretty solid as well. Joey Ortiz has been surprisingly really, really solid. I mean, I knew he'd be good. I didn't think he'd hit this well out of the gate, but I think it's very clear that Bush is on another level on the National League side. And then what Merrill's doing, just from a consistency standpoint while playing center field is pretty crazy too.
Definitely. And as we move to the American League, the best rookie hitter, Colton Cowser. Of course he deserves it right now. Colton Cowser is slashing 395. Yep, 395. 429, 868. That's his slugging percentage. 265 WRC plus, 1.1 F4. All of those lead rookies. He's been the best hitter on the Orioles, arm. And I know Gunner's great, and I know Adley's great, but Anthony Santander is off to a really, really rough start. Colton Cowser is leading the Orioles lineup right now. And Jackson Holliday got off to a really rough start. Of course, Evan Carter still is going to walk and is still going to put up his solid WRC plus. That's why I love him so much. But he's just not there. And Wyatt Langford has an 88 WRC plus, so it can't be any of them. And then Cedane Rafaela, who's next on the odds for the Boston Red Sox, has arguably been baseball's worst player since he got called up. So for me, it's Colton Cowser, and I'm not even thinking twice about it. He has been the best hitter on the Orioles this season so far.
Yeah, and we'll see if he'll sustain it. Like there's going to be swings and swing and miss and things like that. But like he's doing that. Like those numbers that you just read are after he went 0 for 4 with 4 punchies. So I mean, the numbers were even more ridiculous before that. I mean, he's just been on a different level, and that goes all the way back to the beginning of spring training. The way he's been swinging it. So he's clear cut the guy that's really, really standing out, I think, on the rookie side of things. Also Ivan Herrera, we've talked about him so much on the show too, on the National League side, just before I forget. Just another guy with the Cardinals that has been looking really good. I almost wish that they would kind of transition to the younger side. We'll get more on that later, but yeah, with the American League, it's kind of thinner, right? Like, don't you feel like there's just not as many names that are standing out from an offensive perspective? Like you look at it from a WRC plus side. I know it's super early. Cowser's in his own realm, but then the next best is Davis Schneider, and the Blue Jays won't give that guy more run. Like, and I understand that he's a guy that certain matchups you don't want him against, like riding fastballs and things like that, because that's his blue zone at the top. But Davis Schneider's only striking out 27% of the time and has a 147 WRC plus, has a clutch home run that notched them the win off of Josh Hader. He's been pretty damn good offensively, but it's pretty nuts when you look across the rest of the American League rookies. I'm pretty sure that outside of Evan Carter, among any other qualified rookies, Davis Schneider, Evan Carter, nobody else has a WRC plus above 100. Actually, Dominic Fletcher and Lawrence Butler at 102 and 101. So nobody else has a WRC plus over 102 among American League rookie hitters. On the pitching side, though, you mentioned like National League Jared Jones, I think is a guy that definitely deserves some more shine. And then I think there's some more intriguing pitchers, but it's really the rookie of the year has kind of become an offensive award.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, it's become,
because the pitchers just never have the innings, because if it's your rookie year, your innings are probably limited. And then you can't compile enough stats to compete with some of the offensive players who are playing every day.
100%. But if Colton Cowser slows down, can Mason Miller somehow do this thing? Could Mason Miller somehow sneak into this, rookie of the year conversation? I mean, the A's closer has just been insane.
I think he's the most exciting pitcher to watch right now in Major League Baseball. Mason Miller of the Oakland A's. It's 104 with one of the craziest breaking balls. And I was talking about this with Jack. When I see announcers start to geek over their guys, they almost become unprofessional because the little boy or little girl in them comes out that just enjoys watching baseball so much. That's why they got in the profession anyway. Watching Dallas Braden in the booth geek out over Mason Miller is electric. I'm telling you. Go turn on A's games when they have the lead and Mason Miller comes in. Your eyes are going to just widen. This
Yep.
guy is different. I think it's a
Yep.
great pick. However,
So
Colton Cowser has a 265 WRC plus.
yes, correct. Cowser would have to hit a wall, but it's kind of open in the American League. I think, Langford's going to get going and stuff, but
Then
Miller's a
Holiday's
guy that
going to get
definitely
going too. Holiday's going to
that
get
too.
going. Yeah.
Yeah. But Miller, I mean, he's definitely going to be a vote getter. It's been really fun. I hope he stays healthy. One of my favorite interviews that we've done on the call up. That's one that, if you want to learn more about Mason Miller and his incredible story, search, on the call up episodes. I think it was about 8 to 10, almost a year ago now, where we talked to Mason Miller, and it was right as he was starting to break out in the minor leagues. And I mean, his story is just absurd. So I think you guys would really enjoy that episode as well.
All right, we're back for question number 5 of the mailbag. In the era of new rules / changes, what are some things you guys want to see added or changed? Asked by Brian Columbia on Instagram. I have one that's really easy that I genuinely don't know why this isn't a rule already. And then we could talk about some bigger rules, but this is a small one that I think should be instituted tomorrow. If you know how the hitter gets a timeout, right? Because there's the pitch clock, the hitter gets a timeout, he says, and then the pitch clock resets. The pitcher doesn't.
Yeah.
The pitcher should get a timeout, right? It's
I
still
do agree with
geared
that.
towards the hitter. And if we're talking about how pitch clock can sometimes ruin arms, the pitchers deserve a timeout of themselves. It can't be all hitters. The pitchers are exerting more effort anyway in each at bat than the hitter is, but yet the hitter gets the timeout. The pitcher should equally get a timeout from the pitch clock if he needs to just go get the rosin bag a little bit or do a quick walk around the mound or just kind of compose himself. The pitcher should easily get a timeout. That should be a rule that should be instituted tomorrow.
I think that's 100%. I'm with you. And I think it will. I'd imagine it will. And if people are saying, well, oh, he can just step off. Yeah, but that counts as a disengagement.
Exactly.
So that now makes it harder for him to hold runners on, which is already harder than ever before, which I'm fine with those rules. But yeah, we should make sure it's fair. Especially if a pitcher's fatigued, like if a hitter feels rushed, and it's always like a hitter takes a terrible swing and then they call timeout and recalibrate. But a pitcher could spike a ball and, he might get an extra second because they're going to swap the balls out, but he can't call timeout and recalibrate. We've sped the game up enough. One extra timeout for a pitcher, I think is nothing. I'm with you. I think it's borderline unfair for pitchers versus hitters. It doesn't really make any sense.
No, I was just thinking about it with all the rule changes, and I'm watching these games and I'm watching these pitchers get gassed, especially in the bullpens. Like bullpens in general have been blowing leads like I feel like I've never before seen. Notably, the Marlins have been doing their fair share, but it's a lot of the league. And I really do think that if pitchers could just compose themselves for a second. Now, if the hitters didn't have a timeout, okay. But if the hitters get one, the pitcher should absolutely get a timeout. What would be your one rule that you would like to see?
Probably a little bit more complicated and something that'll never happen, but coming from
I have one of those too.
A kid who grew up watching small market baseball, I don't see why we can't have a payroll floor when we have revenue sharing already. So teams are already in small market teams are already incentivized to pocket as much money as possible and give it the old college try and not really put the best product on the field. Like, I mean, look at what the Marlins did this offseason, or didn't do, I should say, right? Like not adding anybody to the fold there. Because why would they? They knew that this season probably wasn't going to go well, and they wanted to use it as an assessment period. That's fine. If you're going to use this as an assessment period, you should still be obliged to put a decent product out on the field. Look at what the Kansas City Royals did. Nobody took them seriously last year. I understand that they have young talent and it's starting to come together, but they went out and spent, and they took that payroll and brought it over the $100 million mark. And now we'll see how it goes for the course of the year, but there's a lot of reason to be excited about that team. And think about most of the reasons why we are saying, okay, they could kind of do something here is because they plugged some holes by spending some money. And then young guys have kind of just taken that leap. But we talked about it when it was happening. I was like, this is good for the young guys. This is going to give them, a little bit more to play for instead of just kind of playing for yourself and developing. Like you're going out there with an outside shot at trying to win the division. I look at Oakland. Obviously, that's an answer, but they're out to a decent start. Like, imagine if they signed a couple big leaguers, like they could have been half decent. The Pirates, they're heading towards a point of being really good, but their payroll is $83 million. They could have easily added another player or two. And we're seeing guys like Tommy Pham, who, was an acquisition for a team that won the pennant, went to the World Series, and was batting in the heart of the order for that team, having to sign a minor league deal. And I think a big problem, a big reason for that is there is no middle class when it comes to free agents. So a lot of these players that are like, lower end middle class in terms of what their value is are just getting pushed down to lower class where they're having to sign for these minor league deals because there's such a gap right now where the top teams aren't interested in a Tommy Pham. And then the lower level teams just don't want to spend the couple million to get him and would rather just run out some, minor leaguer or some guy that hasn't really done anything for them for the league minimum. So I think it's also affecting players and the Tommy Phams of the world that should be getting big league deals. I think it's ridiculous that Tommy Pham didn't get a big league deal. I mean, we're talking about the Mets number 9. I just put out the Mets top prospect list. Their number 9 prospect is who they got for Tommy Pham. So they got a good prospect for him. And he was a guy that was, hitting in the middle of the order for the World Series team. So I think they really need to find a floor. It could be $100 million. Right now you have 5 teams that are below $100 million. That just can't be happening. I just think there's no reason for that in Major League Baseball.
Couldn't agree with you more. I have nothing else to add. There 100% should be a payroll floor. Guys like Tommy Pham should not be signing minor league deals with the freaking White Sox when they were in the middle of the order of a World Series contending team. It makes no sense. And you're 100% right. So I have nothing else to add. Another rule that I wanted to talk about that's been spoken about, maybe even on this podcast, but it's probably been spoken about on most baseball podcasts that I just really like. And I want to talk to you about it and see what your thoughts are. There is I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but basically it's tying the DH to your starting pitcher. So what it does, it incentivizes teams to keep their starter out there longer. Right now, it's mostly 5 and dive guys in Major League Baseball. If a guy goes 6, it's like, whoa, what an outing. But that used to be the standard, right? We have a quality start. 6 innings, 3 runs. That never freaking happens anymore. So guys are incentivized to not throw their 97-mile-an-hour fastball in the first inning until their arm blows out, but to keep it at 93, 94, work through these innings. And the reason you tie the DH to the starting pitcher is as soon as you take out your starting pitcher, you also lose the DH. So whether you have to put bullpen arms in that lineup now, or you just cannot use the DH anymore. So the longer you keep out your starter, so for a good example, let's say it's a 3-3 game and your DH is due up second in the order. Do you keep your starting pitcher out there for the last inning in order to keep him hitting? Do you take him out? Because now you have the DH and now it's some hole in your lineup. So I think that would incentivize pitchers to go longer. I don't know if that'll be better or worse on their arms, depending on how they use it. And while it is a little bit less offense later in the games, it could cause for some bunt scenarios, which would be fun. I think it's a decent idea. I'm not saying I love it. The one I talked about before, I think is a much better one that they should actually do. This one, I like it, and I wanted to bring it to you and see what you thought.
Yeah, my problem is, yeah, and so the pro is like that was the argument that I always understood for like not having the universal DH because there is that strategy component. But what do you do with like Shohei Ohtani right now? So he's DHing, you take your starter out, and now he has to go into the outfield.
Yeah, you'd have to do that.
Yeah, your starter blows up, can't get through an inning. Now it's twofold where you got to go to the bullpen early and you burn your DH in inning number 2. He might not have even hit yet.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah, that's tough. Like I think I like the idea of it because there's been some like silly things that have happened based on the way the rules.
But here's the thing, though. Let's say your starter gets blown up. I mean, unless it's like 10 earned, like the Hunter Brown start where he gave up 10 earned in 2/3 of an inning, you got to keep him out there, right? Is he hurt? No, he's just getting blown up. So maybe he can still eat innings in order to get a couple ABs out of your DH. Or if you say, well, we just got to get him out here now, the game's probably over anyway if he got blown up that hard. I think it's more about incentivizing pitchers in those quality-ish starts instead of taking a guy out at 5 innings, 2 runs because of a pitch count, or he's just been walking guys and you got to see it through. Because normally also in that 6th inning, it's typically when a team is coming up for their 3rd ABs. And normally your DH is high up in your order because he's a designated hitter and he's normally one of the best. So I think it's more about extending the 5 inning guys to 6 or 7 inning guys, which then I think brings back the starter quality in Major League Baseball. Maybe not quality, but quantity.
The challenge for me too is like, so someone's going to get pulled, like, like pushed out of the lineup pretty much in the 5th or 6th inning, maybe 7th inning every single game. So like, let's say I have
not
JD
if your starter
Martinez.
goes long.
So I have JD Martinez, and that guy has not played in the field. I don't think since, I don't even know, like the housing crisis. But you now have to, you take your pitcher out in the 6th. JD Martinez, you either have to decide if you keep him in. If you want to keep him in, you throw him in right and pray. So you put him in right and pray. Then whoever was playing right field is out of the game, like every single game in like the 6th, or JD's done in the 6th. Also, then like, does JD Martinez
but not every
just
single game? Maybe you get 7-8 innings out of your starter and you still get 4 ABs from JD, and then in the last inning they got to come in with a reliever and you got to pray JD's in right, and then it'll open up some fun scenarios because JD's gonna go miss a ball and then we got a new ball game.
I think it's fun.
Yeah,
I would vote against it personally.
I think it's because I kind of miss pitchers hitting. I kind of miss them wearing a jacket when they run. I made fun of it at the time, but now I kind of miss it. It's almost like the grass is always greener. The grass is always greener, and now I see the greenery over there.
I mean, we had a fluke scenario. Diamondbacks burned their whole bench, and Scott McGough had to come in and hit.
And I watched
the game on the line, bases loaded. Got rung up on it. It was a ball. I was actually dialed in. Got rung up on a ball for strike 3, which sucks. But like, yeah, I think it's cool and unique, but I think it would take away from a lot of really fun hitters getting jobs, like, and I think would take away from at bats from a lot of guys that I'd probably rather see, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Let's move on to question number 6. Which superstar having a slow start are you most worried about? This is asked by @AndrewGlav on Instagram. So there's a couple of superstars that are off to really, really tough starts. Julio Rodriguez for the Seattle Mariners has been terrible. Am I worried about him? Absolutely not. Francisco Lindor of the Mets has gotten off to a really bad start. Am I worried about him? Absolutely not. Cody Bellinger has gotten off to a bad start with the Cubs, and I am slightly worried. Not really, but if we're talking about the worry meter, it's not a 1 like the other guys. Might be a 2 or a 3. I want to bring a guy to you, Arm, that I am a little bit worried about. And remember, these are superstars, so I'm really not that worried. But if I have to answer the question, I'm going to. And my answer is Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yep. That's who I had circled, dude. That was like the only name that really stood out to me.
It's the only name that stands out to me because then I did a deep dive into him. First of all, just on the baseline, 54 WRC plus, he only has 1 home run. But the quality of contact has been really, really poor. He's not hitting the ball hard like he used to. And he's really not playing any great defense either. And something about Paul Goldschmidt that always went underrated, and this is what I thought always made him such a great player, was the speed. This is a guy back in, I think it was 2011, he stole 32 bases. And he's always been consistently 15 to 20. That's what makes Paul Goldschmidt such a well-rounded player. But he's a great defender. He's got speed, he's got power, and he can hit for a high average. However, he's not doing any of the baseline things. And then considering he's 36 years old, a lot of those secondary things that made Paul Goldschmidt the superstar, the MVP that he was, are non-existent. And it's a bad spot for the Cardinals right now. It still kind of looks like the lethargic old unit,
Mhm.
And if the Cardinals aren't really winning games, I don't think he has like this ton of motivation to continue to just crush baseballs. I mean, he's 36 years old. He's just getting towards the end of his career. We saw Jose Abreu win an MVP. I know it was a shortened season in 2020, but then a few years later, he looks like a hole in the Astros lineup.
Yeah.
Paul Goldschmidt is starting to feel his age, it looks like to me. Now, I
Yeah.
hope I'm wrong. I love freaking Paul Goldschmidt. Love Paul Goldschmidt. I've always loved him. But this looks like a shell of himself. Now, with Bellinger, Julio, Lindor, like they're just off to bad starts. Like it's fine. But then I also looked into it in 2022, 2021, and I think even 2023. He got off to a great start and then had like not that great of a second half. So he's normally used to having hot starts. It's not every time, but this is not a guy who's normally starting slow. And we're just like, all right, this is typical for him. No,
I
this is kind of a first time in a while, and I've been pretty disappointed with his play so far.
I'm with you. This was the one guy that, again, you look at Lindor, you look at these other players. I think Lindor almost always starts a little slow. I might have that wrong, but
Julio started slow last year too.
oh
Like
yeah, yeah. And we talked about him. Like it seems like it's a little bit mental for him at this point, and it just needs a bit of a reset. But like Goldschmidt, yeah, when you see a guy coming out of the gate this slow, and then you can't even point to the X stats and say, oh, well, at least those look all right,
oh,
and then you look at kind of the you talked about the quality of contact, like 90th percentile exit velocity. It's a small sample. We only have 70 plate appearances to work with right now, but I don't know if he's had a stretch of 70 plate appearances, whereas 90th percentile exit velocity is 102. Like for reference, that takes the top 10% of your batted balls from an exit velocity standpoint. He was at 106 last year, and he wasn't lighting the world on fire last year, but 106.2 last year. The year before that, he was 107 in the 90th percentile, category. So we've kind of seen him slowly tapering off a little bit. The year before that, he was like 107 and a half. But to see it all the way down to 102 so far this year, he's just really not hitting anything incredibly hard. Even his home run off of glass now was like 102. It was a fly ball. You got it, and it's off of glass now. That's great. But even like you can see some guys that are struggling, but then they remind you, like even Stanton, like, and I'm always worried about Stanton at this point, but he'll run into one and be like, okay, you could still kind of
yeah, he
do
could
that.
still hit one 480. Like
So,
I'm
so
not
far
saying
this
that for
year,
Goldschmidt.
like, I don't know if I feel like Goldschmidt can really punish baseballs. Like the hardest ball that he's hit so far this year is a ground ball at 105 and 104.7 to be exact. So like that's definitely concerning. He just looks slower. I would say by far the answer is Paul Goldschmidt. My other answer would be Matt Chapman, but I know he's not really a superstar, but you could kind of like file him in that larger category. But
Dude,
I
he
don't know if
looks
he really
he
qualifies.
looks like Javier Baez right now. You throw him
Yeah,
anything, you can just spit him to death. I mean,
yeah,
this is crazy. I'm watching Matt Chapman. It's easy. Like it's not often where it's like you're a good hitter, but it's easy to get you out. All you gotta do is locate the slider and he's done. It's
yep,
crazy. It sucks. Betting on the
yep.
Giants and freaking Matt Chapman's the guy. Hard hit rates. Oh, the Giants have this whole hard hit rate. Welcome to the Matt Chapman and Jorge Soler show, where they
Oh
don't
yeah,
actually ever turn into hits, but they hit the ball hard, and you're like, when did they do that? But they were on the
yeah,
ground, and it's like the Giants are so due to explode offensively. It ain't from them. Maybe it's from
no,
other people, but I don't. Maybe Soler. That's mean to Soler, but Chapman. I mean, I've been so disappointed. But again, I
yeah.
didn't add him because I don't consider him a star. Do
No,
you?
no. And I took a look at Bogarts. I think he's going to be okay. I know it's been a kind of stretch now as a Padre where it's just hasn't totally been there, but he's one where you see the X stats, they look a lot better. He's not whiffing, a ton. It's not like he's getting blown up. He's walking. He looks overall comfortable. I think he'll be fine. So yeah, really the only guy that I could look at and say I'm worried, like that's a superstar or even a star, has to be Paul Goldschmidt. And I really hope he turns it around because everything you said, I agree with. Like he's been one of my favorite guys to watch for a long time. And I was hoping he could kind of have a couple more strong seasons to give himself a shot at the Hall. So hopefully he can turn this thing around. And maybe he's dealing with a little bit of an ailment, and when you're 36, it could be tighter and not have an IL stint ailment, but it could just be holding you back a little bit. And hopefully that's all it is. And he gets himself right and turns things around because he's just one of those guys that are easy to root for.
Yeah, Paul Goldschmidt has nothing left to prove. If he were to retire tomorrow, he's done everything that he needs to do. And I don't think he's going to win a World Series with the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's why we mentioned him as a trade candidate. Maybe the Cardinals are saying,
Yep.
yeah, it's probably the end of his career. right? If he wants to go win, we'll do what he asks, but we'll see what ends up happening.
Well, he'll
All
be a
right.
Dodger and he'll hit 440
Oh
over the
yeah,
final 2 months of the season. It'll be like Mannyville. They'll have some sort of Goldschmidt section.
and then the Brewers will sweep the Dodgers in the first
Yes.
round of the playoffs. Sorry, Dodger fans, I'm hating on you too much. Question number 7. This is a hater question. What team's farm system is set up worst for the next 5 years? Asked by at Joey Skihen 04 on Instagram. Now, I'm sure you're going to give me a bunch of answers. I want you to give me the worst farm system in Major League Baseball. Not a couple answers. One, who's the worst? The
The
worst.
worst. Okay. So I'll just tell you like who was considered. Like the Marlins were considered, but I think they did decently well in the last draft with the 2 arms that they got, and they got a couple of decent IFAs. It's got to be the Angels. That farm system reeks. And they've got an exciting young piece in Nelson Rada, but they shove him straight to Double-A as an 18-year-old, and he's really faltering. So I think they're gonna like tank his value a little bit by doing that. I have no idea why they did that. Edgar Carroll, by the way, who they traded for Lucas Giolito last year, already has like 4 home runs in the White Sox Oregon, would have been their number 1 prospect. I like Caden Dana. He was one of my breakout arms this year, but he's not a top 100 guy. And Rada's not a top 100 guy. I think he could be. So they have 2 guys that I think are top 175 to 200 prospects, maybe top 150, and then nobody else. Like, that's not good. There's some intriguing, pieces and guys that I'll follow and monitor, but not one top 100 guy. And again, a lot of people do have Rada as a top 100 guy. That's fair enough. One fringe top 100 guy, and then that's it. I mean, if you look at like pipeline, because we haven't done the Angel system yet, and I, for a reason, I'm just not that excited to write that system up.
You don't want to spend
like
days going over the 809th best prospect?
I'm good. Ben Joyce is Pipeline's number 4 prospect, a reliever with command issues and injury history. Like that's their number 4 prospect in their system for Pipeline, and I'll probably have it a little bit different, but I think that says enough. The Angels are in a terrible spot farm system wise. It is not good.
At least all of their young guys are coming up and playing well. And by all of them, I mean just Logan O'Hoppe. Zach Neto has looked bad. Nolan Shanwell has not looked good either. But at least
I mean,
Logan O'Hoppe looks great.
and that's the thing too, is like you basically from a farm system standpoint, I get it. Like if he's up at the big leagues and he's contributing, that's fine. But they kind of punted their first round pick from a farm system standpoint, which I get. Farm system rankings don't win you World Series, but Shanwell's stinking out loud at the big league level, which is unfortunate, and he shouldn't be up there, and they're totally failing him by doing that. It's not fair to him. Going from Florida Atlantic University, like Conference USA or wherever the hell they play, in Boca Raton, with a metal bat to the big leagues in a matter of a month is ridiculous. And now, he's really struggling. Like that could have been a guy that could have mashed in high A, which he was for the few games, mashed in Double-A, been a top 100 considered prospect, and, climbed his way up there. But now he's a guy that's no longer a prospect that is really struggling at the big league level, and it just doesn't make any sense. I love O'Hoppe, and he's a young piece for them. I think Neto, you could justify rushing him where they were at, and what he could do at shortstop. And I know he's been struggling coming off the injury. I still like him long term, but the Shanwell thing was malpractice. And then they just have not drafted well otherwise, and they haven't done well in IFA. I think they're definitely the worst farm system.
Nice job, Artie Moreno, you moron. All right, let's move on to question number 8. Who has been the MUVP, the most underrated valuable player in each league so far?
Ooh,
this is asked by Marco.Martinez
great one
on our Twitter. I think this is a great one to end it. I have one for the American League, and I have one for the National League. You want to hit the American League first, then we'll go to National League?
I want to give you the American League just in case I steal yours.
Okay. So for the American League, of course, it's Tyler O'Neill of the Boston Red Sox, slashing 313, 459, 750 with a 230 WRC plus and a 0.9 F4. What have I told you, Arm? And I don't mean to pat myself on the back because it's freaking the middle of April, but God damn it, I've been a Tyler O'Neill guy for years. This guy, once he is fully healthy and he's not in the shadow of freaking why am I just off the top of my head in my rant? I'm forgetting the name of the Cardinals manager, Ollie Marmol.
Oh
He's not in
God.
that shadow anymore. He's finally out of there. And we see what he looks like. This guy a few years ago was a 40 home run threat who looked like a bodybuilder who was just a freak of nature. And he's finally showing it for the Boston Red Sox. And he has been arguably the best overall hitter in the American League. It has to be. Because what is Bobby Wood Jr.? Of course, he's the MVP, but most underrated valuable player, definitely Tyler O'Neill. Was that your answer?
So that was like the obvious one, and I was going to give him, but then there was a secondary one. I don't know if he's underrated because he's a Yankee, but like what Anthony Volpe is doing right now, and I know you guys have talked about it on the show, like he's on a team with Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, and he's been by war and by a lot of metrics the most valuable player that they've got, walking as much as he struck out. And again, I know you've hit on all the things that he's doing really well, playing good defense. I know he's not as underrated because he's such a highly regarded prospect and he's a Yankee and all that good stuff, but he's not a guy that you're focusing on the Yankees going into this year, and he has been phenomenal. So I think that's a guy that definitely stands out to me on the American League side. Does it have to be a team that's performing well? Because like I think there's some other players on teams that like aren't performing that well that you could also mention and float. But I do think like Volpe, I mean, the guy's been one of the best players in baseball. He's been right there with Bobby Witt Jr. I think he's been doing a lot of the same things. I mean, Bobby Witt's slugging a little bit more, but I mean, he's been doing a lot of the things that Bobby Witt Jr. has been doing so far.
The way I judged the question was it doesn't matter what team, but are they known as a star or a superstar? And I don't think Tyler O'Neill is known as a star or superstar. And I think Anthony Volpe fits that description. I don't think people are saying, besides Yankee fans and me, are saying that Anthony Volpe is a star or a superstar yet. I'm sure a lot of people want to see more, but Anthony Volpe is doing everything and then some, and has arguably been the Yankees' most valuable player outside of Juan Soto. The
And
defense,
I
and
got
it's just the plate discipline. I'm just so freaking excited watching him take ABs. Just so much fight and such good defense at shortstop. I could keep going, but how about you go to the National League?
I got one more American League guy. Can we talk about
Okay,
a pitcher though?
let's do
How
it.
about Cutter Crawford so far?
Unreal,
I mean,
unreal.
we're talking 4 starts, 21 and a thirds for the Red Sox, a 0.42 ERA, and the underlying, like it's a 2.28 xERA. He's been the best pitcher in the American League. Like
I think that's
that,
fair.
like point blank, right? Like he's been the best pitcher in the American League. He's the reason why the Red Sox pitching staff, big reason why, especially now with Pivetta down, has been good. So like I know it's early for a pitcher to be that most underrated valuable player, but 4 starts doing what he's doing so far. I mean, he's already accumulated a full win, full FWAR. That's pretty nuts, especially pitching in a place like Boston that is pretty hitter friendly.
I like how we talk about F4 like it's almost like Bitcoin, like we're
Yeah,
accumulating an F4, like we're accumulating Bitcoin.
I'd like to accumulate Bitcoin.
Me too. Well, not right now. It's crashing, and I have to pay the IRS, whatever. All right. National League. National League. I hate this guy. I hate him, but he's my pick. Marcell Ozuna is your most underrated, valuable player in the National
Yeah,
League for the Atlanta Braves. I mean, the guy is just hitting the shit
so
out of the
crazy.
baseball every day, and it sucks because I don't like him. Slashing 365, 412, 746 for a 207 WRC plus. How is he at a 1.0 F4? How? How has he already accumulated a Bitcoin? How has he done it?
Yeah, when he's doesn't play defense, and when he does, it's the worst thing you've ever seen. Um,
He rakes every day, dude. He's like the best hitter on the Braves.
it's absurd
It's
because he was so
absurd.
like. Don't forget, there was a point in time where the Marlins and the Braves were very like casually but discussing a bad contract swap for Avi Garcia and Marcell Ozuna. Like it was that was reported by the Miami Herald, Craig Mish. Like that was discussed. And now we're at the point where like Ozuna could net you like a couple really good prospects, like
Yeah.
let alone offset Avi Garcia. Like what in the world? I don't know how you got from like legitimately one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball to one of the best power hitters in Major League Baseball. And we kept saying like, okay, well, is he going to keep doing it? You cannot deny what Marcell Ozuna does on the field
He
at this
looks
point.
like a
Like
right-handed Jordan.
it's
Like,
crazy.
it's
He's not even
absurd.
punching. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not even punching out.
He's the best
It's
hitter
absurd.
on the Braves right now.
which is absolutely nuts. Yeah,
The
he's
best
the
offense
answer.
in baseball. He's the MVP almost of the National
This
League.
the second answer, I think, is Spencer Steer. I think you got to go with him because I mean this Reds team, like there's so much volatility on it, you know, in terms of like guys that like Ellie De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand that when they're dialed in, it's like holy crap, but when they're not, it's rough. And you know, you've had Candelario kind of struggling, who I think is going to get it going, but you know, just looking at what Steer's been able to do for them from like a consistency standpoint, giving them a little bit of power. Now settling into left field, hitting for average. He's stolen 3 bags as well. Just such a well-rounded game. I know you love him. I think when you look at where the Reds are at and just the volatility of that lineup, he's been a much needed rock for them in left field. And he's, you know, among one of the most valuable players in baseball so far.
Peter Vision is off to just an electric start. I mean, this is why it's the best stat of all time. We got Steer, we got O'Neill, we got plenty of guys, but I thought this was an awesome mailbag. I want to send a special thanks to all of you guys who have been following along on our Twitter, on our Instagram, and been asking questions. Remember, Arm and I will be back probably every other Wednesday. We want to include Jack in these too, so we're going to figure it out. But we are definitely doing a mailbag every 2 weeks. So make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you are following our Instagram and our Twitter. Both are linked in the episode description. Big news. We got a merch update.
Oh,
Everyone has been
yeah.
asking, we need new merch. We need new merch. And we got it. You can find it in our Shopify, which is also, again, in our link tree in the episode description. Talk about all the new merch that we have because I'm pretty sure we're finally stacked back with the ropes hat. You know, I got mine on.
The rope hats are coming in. We sold those out, which is crazy.
Yeah, those
Which
sell
is
out
so cool.
immediately.
So cool. Thank you everybody for that. And then, I mean, we've got everything now. New designs on crew necks, new designs on hoodies. You know, some are like smaller logos that are like embroidered, which is way nicer. Others are, you know, the classic bigger logo on there. We've got athletic polos. Like our guy Clay Snowden just snapped on this, like just went crazy and gave us so many different like so much variety. And then on top of that, we have like a whole little like team now that's going to be meeting like every few weeks to like kind of create some different designs, stuff for like specific teams, fan bases. So like stay tapped in on that. We're going to be putting out some stuff like pretty consistently now. And I think you guys might like it, but definitely check out some of the new stuff in the store, browse around and let us know what you think. We're always looking for feedback and can always adjust the designs and, you know, make some stuff that you guys want to see and really appreciate you guys wanting to rep just baseball and help us grow just across the game.
100%. So, and again, if you don't want to buy any merch, we understand, right? But if you could just leave a 5-star review, whether that be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, the best way to support the show. And of course, the actual best way to support the show is to get some Just Baseball merch. And hey, if you want to do both, you could be my best friend. And if you subscribe on YouTube, I might marry you. So make sure to do all those three. I got a lot of people to marry. So make sure you tackle all of those. For Arm Lane, I'm Peter Apple. We will be back on Thursday. And with that, thank you, everybody.